All right. I'm sorry that there was no notice on Twitter for when the stream was starting. And the reason for that is that I have to leave for work in about an hour. So I have very little time to do this, and I was debating whether to just push it to Sunday, but I figured, what the hell, I'll give it a shot. So I'm not going to have any time to talk to the chat room. I'm barely going to have enough time to do the review. So I'm sorry if people were looking forward to conversing or whatever, but I don't have the time of day to do that, because I got to do this very, very quickly and then get dressed and then drive a pretty lengthy commute to work for the rest of the day. So let's just get started. Sorry. Impact Wrestling from June the 22nd, third show of the India Tour. Guess we're still calling it a tour, even though it's all in one place. Whatever. Anywho, the show proper begins with a Sony six-way elimination match for the Sony six-way X Division trophy, because that's a thing now. So they're still giving out trophies. Not sure why. If these trophies had any kind of significance, you think they would have, like, built them up or mentioned them at some point previously, but they didn't. It's just something. It's really just something to give, like, the Sony 6 people, like, some face time on the show. Bring them out. Hey, have this prestigious trophy. Okay. Looks kind of cheap, but whatever. I guess it's the thought that counts. And it wasn't even an Indian guy that won it this time. It was strange. But yeah. So it's an X Division match. We got Trevor Lee versus Davey Richards versus Suicide versus Braxton Sutter versus Eddie Edwards versus Matt Sydal. And a lot of this is Davey and Trevor working together to eliminate people. They take out Braxton Sutter and then Suicide, and then Davey gets himself DQ'd for using a steel chair on Eddie Edwards, and then Eddie gets himself, is DQ'd for suplexing Davey onto the chair. I'm not sure why, because Davey was already out of the match at that point, so why would Eddie get DQ'd for using the chair on him? That made no sense to me. But yeah, they take each other out once again. Comes down to Matt Sydal and Trevor Lee at for the final two, and then Sydal wins with the shooting star press. You know, it's a good match. Nice to see the X Division being given time, but it all feels kind of random. You know, other than the stuff with Davey and Eddie continuing to push their feud. I really wish we could get the women back in there, because it feels like they're being ignored right now. I don't know why they didn't bring them to Mumbai for some reason, but other than that stuff, it just felt kind of random, kind of like filler. But if they're singling out Matt Sydal like this, I assume he's going to be inserted into the X Division title picture in the not-too-distant future, probably after Slammiversary, so that's another guy who's stepping ahead of Andrew Everett in line. Hopefully Everett won't be recovering from surgery for too long. Because I would like to see him get the shot that he was going to get before the new regime started. Yeah, it's, a good match, I guess. Felt a little too random for my taste. I got no problems with Matt Sydal winning. Nice to see Trevor Lee last until the end, and hopefully it's a sign that maybe he's not done and not leaving in support of his buddy Shane Helms. We'll see. Considering certain things that happened later in the show, which got for almost no time at all, I think they could have shortened this a little bit. Also, the main event, I'll get to that later, but, good match to start the show with. We cut to outside the studio, where Rockstar Spud is fighting Hornswoggle on the streets of Mumbai, and I still don't care. I just don't. Enough with the Hornswoggle crap, please. Put Rockstar Spud into a program that doesn't suck. Hornswoggle stuff is stupid. Knock it off. Something that's not stupid. Joseph Park is feeling demoralized about the upcoming match with Scott Steiner and the Goat. So JB gives him a pep talk saying they're going to work together and they're going to make this happen. And they have another funny workout montage. They're working the treadmill and they're lifting weights and they're high-fiving a lot, and JB finally does the flip dive into the pool, and he pulls it off, and then Joseph almost kills him by jumping into the pool on top of him. And the only thing missing was the Rocky music, You know, again, it's really funny stuff. I'm very grateful for Joseph Park's inclusion because it was when he was added to this feud that it actually became entertaining. Because now we're getting stuff like this instead of JB and Josh just snapping at each other and ruining the show by not calling the action like they're supposed to. Because the commentary with JB and Josh is actually a lot better now that they've toned that down considerably. So, you know, again, good hype for that match. Again, I'm not expecting a great match. It doesn't have to be a great match. It just has to be entertaining at the pay-per-view, and I think it will be if it's more stuff like this. So, you know, another good video package there. And then we get to the really frustrating part of the show. And it pains me to say that it was the knockout segment. So we have a little thing with Allie backstage where she's trying to encourage herself. She doesn't. For some reason there's a question of whether Rosemary will show up to help her in the match, even though Rosemary has protected Allie several times just prior to this. Now all of a sudden there's a question. Oh, will Rosemary show up? What has she given any impression that she wouldn't? I didn't understand that part. But for some reason they're not sure. Allie isn't sure if Rosemary's going to show up to help her. And so she comes out for this match, and LVN and Sienna are approaching her on the ramp, and Allie's acting all scared and everything, and then Rosemary's music is playing, but she's not showing up, and then she comes out from under the ramp, and she attacks them from behind. And what made this part work was Allie's performance, because she's acting like really nervous and scared and terrified of Sienna and LVN, and then Rosemary appears, and Allie's face just lights up, and she's bouncing around, she's all happy, it's like, oh my god, she showed up, she came to help me, because she's my friend now, and it's because of Allie's performances like this that Allie gave that I'm actually really excited to see these two characters working together as friends, and not just because it's Cherry Bomb and Courtney Rush, but the performances of these two just really sell how entertaining this could potentially be, and I really, really hope that they don't have Rosemary turn on Allie. I was excited as hell for this potential feud, but I want to see them as friends for a while first, because I'm really enjoying that part. But then we get to the actual match. For what it is. The whole thing is maybe 2 minutes. KM comes out almost immediately, causes a distraction, him and Braxton Sutter are fighting, and I guess Allie gets distracted by this, and Rosemary is double-teamed by the heels. And she takes LVN's curb stomp. She gets a German suplex from Sienna, and then Sienna just pins her. Just like that. Whole thing, maybe 2 minutes, and it's over. And then Josh Matthews mentions offhand, yeah, that was the first time that Rosemary has been pinned. And it went by so fast that I actually missed it the first time I watched it. I had to go back and rewatch the segment again to make sure. That's when I heard it. That was the only acknowledgement that they gave, that this was the first time that Rosemary has ever been pinned. Surely you guys can see what's wrong with this. Okay? This woman, she's been in TNA, been in Impact Wrestling over a year. They've stressed several times that she's one of the most dominant Knockouts champions like ever. That's what they were going with. So, this being the first time she's ever been pinned, why the fuck would you not make a big deal out of that? If that's something, yeah, that's something that you could have built up to, that you could have made out to be a big thing. Like, who's going to be the first person to beat Rosemary? Is it even possible to beat Rosemary? I don't know, she's so dominant. Is there anybody that can beat her? You could have built that up for a while, so that when somebody finally pinned her, it would have really meant something. But instead, it was never mentioned that she was undefeated on Impact. And then when Sienna finally does beat her, it happens in like a fucking 2-minute tag match. And then it only acknowledged in a throwaway line. And then it's never even followed up on in the rest of the show. They don't even mention it again. What the fuck? This was utter horseshit. When I think about what could... Look, if you want this to be Rosemary's first loss, okay. I don't have a problem with that if you do it right. But this whole thing just felt like a fucking afterthought. When I think about what what they could have done with this if it had been executed right by the writers, as opposed to what they did with it. This was fucking inexcusable. What a huge fucking wasted opportunity here. This did a disservice to Rosemary, did a disservice to Sienna, and frankly, it did a fucking disservice to this whole feud. Which, by the way, still feels a lot more like a Sienna versus Allie feud that Rosemary was just randomly inserted into. Fuck! This pissed me off so much. I'm sorry. This was very frustrating to me. All the women deserved better than this. This was horseshit. They should have gotten so much more time and a lot more attention to detail by the writers, which, for the record, is something that this creative team is really faltering at right now. Attention to detail. There is very little going on. They need somebody in the writers' room that's going to pay more attention to this type of stuff and these types of details, because right now they don't have someone like that. This was very frustrating to me, and frankly, it kind of colored my impressions of the whole show. So next we get a video package of LAX. They're still back in the States. They can't come to India because of priors. So they're doing this thing where they're going to other indie companies and like winning all their tag belts. So I guess this is probably what the Expedition of Gold was going to be, or something like that, along those lines. Okay, I don't have a problem with this. It gives LAX some kind of presence on the show because they can't come to India for whatever reason. But what's the end game here? What are we building up to? Because Slammiversary is coming up pretty quick, like in a couple days, and I still have no idea what the tag title match on the show is going to be. So, are LAX going to run into someone on this thing that they're doing? Are they going to? That's somebody that they're going to face at the pay-per-view? I don't know. But, the clock's ticking here. Can you get around to announcing a tag title match for Slammiversary, please? I'm just saying. Back in Mumbai, Sanjay Dutt, new X Division champion, is having like a mini parade or something. He's getting driven around on I don't know what that was, like a cart of some kind, whatever. So he's dressed to the nines in Indian garb, and he's got all his people behind him. Who's Sanjay, and he's got a big crowd of people supporting him. And then he comes out into the studio in front of the big crowd, and he's got all these Indian dancers, and they're playing Indian music, and he's having this little dance party in the ring and everything. And to my American eyes, the whole thing looks kind of silly, but my God, the Indian crowd is going apeshit over this stuff. They're dancing in the crowd, and they're having a great time, and they're just cheering like Sanjay. There is something to be said for having a celebration for a new X Division champion having a celebration for his title win. I can't remember the last time something like that happened. And it does show that the X Division title is something that's very important to this guy, and to show the crowd reacting to it like they did, that means something too. Kind of elevates the importance of the title, which, let's be honest, the title could really use. So that was nice. And so Sanjay cuts a brief promo about how he's going to be the best X Division champion ever. Low-key comes out pretty quickly, strangely enough, to congratulate Sanjay, but then he says he wants a rematch for the title because he gave Sanjay another title match, so it's only fair that he gets his rematch as the former champion. Sanjay agrees and says, let's do it at Slammiversary. Let's make it a 2 out of 3 falls. And they shake hands, and then Low-key... yeah. Low-key takes him out, and he takes out Shera, who's there as well. He hits the Warrior's Way on Shera, goes to hit it on Sanjay, but then Matt Sydal makes the save, so I guess Sydal is going to be the next guy in line for the title, probably. And this was good because they finally gave us a reason to root against Low-key. That was one of the problems with the feud up to that point. I was more on Low-key's side because he was just a fighting champion who was doing what a fighting champion does, and Sanjay was coming off like a whiner who just wanted things handed to him. There was never a reason to think that Low-key was the heel in that situation. Now there is. Okay, this works. This makes Sanjay look more sympathetic. It makes Low-key look like an asshole. Okay, now the character dynamics are more appropriate. Which is a good thing, because judging by this promo exchange that they had, which guy did you say came off better here? Because in my opinion, one guy looked poised and spoke very well on the mic, and the other guy, unfortunately, was Sanjay. So you need a heel who's easy to hate here, because outside of India, I don't know if Sanjay is going to be getting that kind of reaction from the crowd. Just saying. So after this, we have KM versus an injured Mahabali Shera, who's kind of hobbling out to the ring. His ribs are all taped up. And before this match even starts, I say to myself, okay, well, you've got a great reason. You've got a reason for Shera to eat this loss. He's injured, so that won't hurt him. Also, you could have Rosemary come out to distract KM, because his distraction led to her eating her first loss just a few minutes earlier. So there's several reasons that you could have KM go over here, which would have made perfect sense. But instead, you have an injured Mahabali Shera, who couldn't even stand up straight while he was making his entrance, because he was hugging his ribs so much because they were in such agony, beats KM very quickly. Again, probably under 2 minutes. So you have all these excuses for, all these ways to protect KM, and you just don't go for it. Instead, he just loses to an injured Mahabali Shera, which, look, I get it, all right. You're in India, he's the Indian guy, you want to put him over. But at the same time, wouldn't it make sense to at least protect this other person who, let's be honest, has a lot more upside than Shera does right now? I mean, this made KM look really bad. I'm sorry. I didn't like that at all. I didn't like how this was done at all. Okay, make Shera look good in India, but you're only in India for a month of shows. Then you're going back to America, at which point Shera probably goes back to being a place filler. So doesn't it make more sense to keep KM protected, since he's the guy that you're probably going to be rolling with a lot more? I'm just saying, the booking here did not make sense to me. So Congo Kong comes out, and the heels beat up Shera at that point to get their heat back. Okay, whatever. I still don't like the way that the match was laid out. If KM had to get pinned like that, did it have to be so damn quick? He didn't end up looking good here. That did not make him look good, which I'm pissed about, because KM's my boy, even though he did contribute to Rosemary getting her first loss. That was more of a booking thing than KM. Wasn't really his fault. That was the bookers. Anywho, Eli Drake and Chris Adonis. Wow, I am losing time here. Gotta do this quickly. Eli Drake and Chris Adonis come out for a promo segment. They cut a promo on Moose. They want Moose to reveal who his tag team partner is going to be for Slammiversary, as if it's not the most obvious thing in the goddamn world. So Moose comes out and cuts not very good promo, saying his partner is NFL player DeAngelo Williams. Holy shit! Who could have possibly seen this coming besides everybody? So they have this brief video package showing all the PR this has gotten, which, of course, is why they're doing it, for a publicity stunt. And I guess it worked, so good. My question is, if it was, considering it was so obvious who Moose's partner was going to be, wasn't there a more interesting way to reveal this? In a way that, I don't know, would have been more impactful, I guess. I mean, everybody pretty much knew that it was going to be DeAngelo Williams. So to just have Moose come out and announce it like it's a surprise just felt very underwhelming to me. Another case of the writers just kind of phoning this stuff in. So anyway, the heels beat down Moose, and he doesn't beat them off easily this time like he did last week. Because last week I was thinking, well, if Moose can easily handle these two guys by himself, what does he need a partner for? Hey, here, they beat him down, and he looked like he needed help. Okay, that's better. I'm still not really looking forward to Eli Drake possibly getting pinned by a football player, so hopefully it's Chris Adonis who eats the pin in that match. I'm not optimistic, but anything's possible. Then we have our main event, EC3 and Bobby Lashley versus James Storm and Alberto El Patron. good match. You had Storm diving over the ropes at one point. They did a Tower of Doom spot, which with guys that big is pretty impressive. Goes for a while, and it ends in a kind of a stupid finish where the faces are winning, and then EC3 just is like, fuck it, and he whips the referee with a leather strap, causing a DQ. Really cheap ending, I have to say. Also, not that this was a bad match, it wasn't a bad match, but it went for quite a while, I think around 20 minutes, something like that. And, you know, considering these are two of, like, the biggest matches, maybe the two biggest matches, and the pay-per-view, is it really a good idea to have them touching so much, so close to the show? I had no problem with them doing this match, but maybe keep it on the shorter side? Just to kind of preserve the freshness here, whatever there is of it? I don't know, it felt like the match went redundantly long to me. And there were better uses of this time. Maybe shave a few minutes off this, maybe give it to the Knockouts, who got completely fucking gypped and ripped off on time this week for a segment that really fucking needed more time. It seemed to me that this match did not need to be as long as it was. Just my opinion. Good match, but it was long to the point of redundancy, in my opinion. And that was the show. Once again, not a bad Impact here, really. Not a bad show, but there are definitely points where you can see how the pandering to India and Sony 6 is not only hurting the Slammiversary build-up, but also preventing these shows from being better than they are, due to too much time being spent on this, or not enough time being devoted to that, thus impeding proper storytelling in some cases. The Knockout segment getting as little time as it did was just fucking ridiculous. Completely inexcusable. All those four women got completely screwed over. They should have had a lot more attention devoted to it by creative. And they treated it like a throwaway. Now, I understand that making nice with the people you came to India to make nice with is important business-wise. But it shouldn't be coming at the expense of other things which are also important. Because that's gonna backfire on you when you return to the States and do more TV over there, and then you realize, oh wait, we didn't really set this up properly because we didn't devote the attention to it that it needed when we were in India and pandering to all those people, and now we've kind of screwed ourselves creatively. You know, it just seems like the writers' priorities are a little skewed right now. Frankly, I'm kind of surprised that Impact's viewership has gone up for every show of the India tour so far, because while they've been all right, while the shows have been all right in my opinion, they haven't been that good. They did this. I mean, the show actually, what was it, like 340-something thousand? Up from like 318,000 last week? That was surprising to me. Weren't they up against like the NFL draft or something? I don't know. I don't watch football. Anyway, I'm happy for the Indian fans. I'm glad they're getting a bone thrown to them because that's a largely untapped market. You know, they're pretty starved for wrestling over there. But I am looking forward to Impact returning to America so the writers can hopefully get this show back on track from a creative standpoint. I will miss the hot crowd, though. That crowd has been awesome. So now we're back in the Impact Zone after next week. Ugh. Yeah, that hot crowd will be missed very much. And I gotta go, guys. I gotta leave in like 20 minutes. I still gotta get dressed and get cleaned up and stuff. So sorry I couldn't talk to the chat room this week. I just didn't have time for it. I wanted to get this done with so I could focus on other stuff. It was either do it right now and do like a rushed review and not talk to the chat room, or push it to Sunday, which I don't like doing. Thanks for tuning in. If you were watching, the stream, I'm sorry there wasn't a notice about that on Twitter, but again, I didn't have time to talk to the chat room, so I figured, what's the point? So thanks for tuning in. Stay tuned. We're gonna have a big quote-unquote all-star edition of the HeelCast. I guess we're recording it on Sunday, where we're going to break down the pay-per-view and all give our thoughts. I think most, if not all of us, are going to be on that show. So check that out. And I will talk to you guys hopefully next Saturday for the next Impact review. So thanks for tuning in. I'll talk to you guys next week. Over. Out.